Cars have come a long way since their early days. While today's vehicles come equipped with life-saving technologies like airbags, anti-lock brakes, and lane departure warnings, the cars of yesteryear were a far cry from what we drive today. In fact, some features from the past might make you do a double take, not because they were cool or innovative, but because they were downright dangerous. We're talking about design choices that could turn a minor fender bender into a major catastrophe. In this video, we're going to take a ride through 20 dangerous old car features that no longer exist, thankfully. Buckle up, because this trip down memory lane might get a little bumpy. Number 1. No seatbelts. Let's start with a feature that we take for granted today: seatbelts. Hard to believe now, but there was a time when cars did not come with seatbelts at all. Before the 1960s, being strapped into your car just wasn't a thing. Drivers and passengers had nothing holding them in place except maybe their own luck and a white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel. It wasn't until several years and countless accidents later that seatbelts became mandatory, saving countless lives in the process. Number 2. Bench seats. Remember those old bench seats? They stretched across the entire front row of the car with nothing separating the driver from the passenger. While these seats might have been comfortable, they were a nightmare for safety. During a sharp turn or sudden stop, everyone in the front row could easily slide into each other, or worse, straight out of the vehicle. These seats were eventually phased out, but for a time they were as common as they were dangerous. Number 3. No crumple zones. One of the most crucial safety innovations in modern cars is the crumple zone part of the vehicle that absorbs the impact of a crash to protect passengers. But older cars? They were built like tanks. And while that might sound cool, it meant the entire force of a collision was transferred directly to the passengers. No crumple zones, no mercy. Number 4. Glass gas tanks. Yes, you heard that right, glass gas tanks. In the early days of car manufacturing, some models had glass tanks, likely for ease of seeing how much fuel you had left. But let's be real, one minor accident and that gas tank could shatter, creating a recipe for disaster. Imagine your car exploding into flames just because someone tapped your bumper. Terrifying. Number 5. Dashboard ashtrays. Back when smoking was cool, dashboard ashtrays were the norm. Not only did they encourage smoking while driving, a distraction in itself, but they were also located dangerously close to flammable materials. A carelessly flicked cigarette could turn a routine drive into a car fire. Today, most cars have ditched ashtrays altogether, and honestly, good riddance. Number 6. No headrests. Think about the last time you leaned back into your headrest. Now imagine driving without one. Before the 1960s, headrests simply didn't exist in cars. That might not seem like a big deal, but without headrests, passengers were much more likely to suffer severe whiplash in the rear-end collision. Once headrests became standard, neck and spine injuries dropped dramatically. Number 7. Metal dashboards. Here's one that'll make you cringe: metal dashboards. These beauties were made of solid metal and, in the event of an accident, offered no protection to the passengers who might be flung forward. Picture slamming into a rock-solid dashboard during a collision. Ouch, indeed. Number 8. Non-collapsible steering columns. One of the scariest features of older cars was the non-collapsible steering column. Modern steering columns are designed to collapse upon impact to avoid impaling the driver. But in the early days, a head-on collision could send the steering wheel straight into the driver's chest, turning the steering column into a deadly spear. Number 9. Suicide doors. Cool name, but seriously bad idea. Suicide doors were rear-hinged, meaning they opened in the opposite direction of normal doors. That was all fun and games until someone accidentally opened the door while the car was in motion. The wind could catch the door and passengers could be pulled out mid-drive. Thankfully, this feature became more of a novelty and faded into obscurity for obvious reasons. Number 10. No side mirrors. Early cars didn't have side mirrors. Drivers were stuck using a single rear-view mirror, giving them a very limited view of what was going on behind them. Merging into traffic, lane changes on the highway, all one big dangerous guessing game. Thankfully, side mirrors are now a requirement. Number 11. Lap-only seatbelts. When seatbelts first came onto the scene, they only went across your lap. That's right, lap seatbelts left your upper body completely unrestrained. In an accident, this design meant your chest and head could be violently whipped forward. It wasn't until the 1970s that 3-point seatbelts, which also restrain the upper body, became standard. Number 12. Manual windshield wipers. In the early days, manual windshield wipers were the norm. Can you imagine driving into a downpour and having to crank the wipers by hand? Not only was this exhausting, but it also made driving in bad weather extremely dangerous. Today, electric wipers take care of the hard work for us. Number 13. No child safety locks. If you think early cars were death traps for adults, imagine being a kid in one. Child safety locks didn't exist, meaning little ones could easily open the car door while it was in motion. Luckily, modern vehicles are equipped with child safety locks that keep curious hands from getting into trouble. Number 14. Hand crank windows. We all remember hand crank windows, right? While they weren't inherently dangerous, they could be a serious problem in an emergency. Imagine trying to roll down your window in a fire or after crashing into water. It would take too much time and effort. Electric windows have made quick escapes much easier. Number 15. No anti-lock brakes, ABS. Before anti-lock braking systems, ABS, drivers had to rely solely on their own braking skills. If you slammed on the brakes too hard, the wheels would lock up, causing you to skid uncontrollably. ABS prevents this by maintaining traction, making emergency stops much safer. Number 16. Wooden steering wheels. In the early days, many cars had wooden steering wheels. Sure, they looked classy, but they weren't practical or safe. Wood could crack in extreme temperatures, and during a crash, a wooden steering wheel could splinter, creating even more hazards for the driver. Number 17. No turn signals. Before turn signals, drivers had to use hand signs to indicate they were turning. This might have worked on a quiet country road, but in modern traffic, not so much. Turn signals have made driving safer and communication with other drivers much easier. Number 18. Floor-mounted dimmer switch. In older cars, the dimmer switch for the headlights was located on the floor, requiring drivers to take their foot off the gas and switch between high and low beams. This extra distraction could be particularly dangerous at night when visibility was already low. Number 19. No airbags. Airbags are now a life-saving standard in all cars, but before the 1990s, they were pretty much unheard of. Passengers relied solely on seatbelts for protection, and without airbags, even minor accidents could result in serious injuries. Number 20. Side saddle gas tanks. In the 1970s, some trucks had gas tanks mounted outside the frame, making them dangerously vulnerable in side collisions. A hard hit from the side could cause the gas tank to rupture, leading to a fiery explosion. Luckily, this dangerous design is a thing of the past. And there you have it, 20 dangerous old car features that no longer exist. While classic cars may have their charm, they came with some pretty frightening safety risks. It's hard to imagine driving without the modern safety features we rely on today. If you enjoyed this look back at automotive history, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more car content. And let us know in the comments, did we miss any other dangerous car features from the past?